your fair daughter Elizabeth when I selected the honor of a private audience with her in the course of this evening?
Oh dear, yes, certainly. I am sure Lizzie will be very happy. I am sure she can have no objection. Come, Kitty, I want you upstairs.
Mr. Collins can have nothing to say to me that anybody need not hear. I am going away myself.
No, nonsense, Lizzie. I desire you to stay where you are. Lizzie, I insist upon your staying and hearing Mr. Collins.
Mrs. Bennet and Kitty exit. Kitty comes back with Lydia, and they listen at the door.
Believe me, my dear Miss Elizabeth, with your modesty so far from doing you any disservice, rather adds to your other perfections. You would have been less amiable in my eyes had there not been this little unwillingness. But allow me to assure you that I have your respected mother's permission for this address. You can hardly doubt the purport of my discourse. However, your natural delicacy may lead you to dissemble. My attentions have been too marked to be mistaken. Almost as soon as I entered this house, I singled you out as the companion of my future life. But before I am run away with my feelings on this subject, perhaps it would be advisable for me to state my reasons for marrying, and moreover, for coming into Hertfordshire with the design of selecting a wife, as I certainly did.
Mary comes by, and Kitty and Lydia make room for her to listen at the door as well.
My reasons for marrying are, first, that I think it a right thing for every clergyman in easy circumstances, like myself, to set the example of matrimony in his parish. Secondly, that I am convinced that it will add very greatly to my happiness. And thirdly, which perhaps I ought to have mentioned earlier, that it is the particular advice and recommendation of the very noble lady whom I have the honor of calling patroness. Twice she has condescended to give me her opinion on this subject. And it was but the very Saturday night before I left Hunsford. Mr. Collins, you must marry, she said. A clergyman like you must marry. Choose properly. Choose a gentlewoman for my sake and for your own. Let her be an active, useful sort of person, not brought up high, but able to make a small income go a good way. This is my advice. Find such a woman as soon as you can, bring her to Hunsford, and I will visit her. Allow me, by the way, to observe my fair cousin, which I do not reckon the notice and kindness of Lady Catherine de Bourgh as amongst the least of the advantages in my power to offer. You will find her manners beyond anything I can describe, and your wit and vivacity, I think, must be acceptable to her, especially when tempered with the silence and respect which her rank will inevitably excite. As I am to inherit this estate after the death of your honored father, I could not satisfy myself about resolving to choose a wife from among his daughters. That is, the loss to them might be as little as possible when the melancholy event takes place, which, however, may not be for several years. This has been my motive, my fair cousin, and I flatter myself it will not sink me in your esteem. And then nothing remains but for me but to assure you in the most animated language of the violence of my affection. To fortune, I am perfectly indifferent, and shall make no demand of that nature on your father, since I am well aware that it could not be compiled with, and that £1,000 and the 4%, which will not be yours till your mother's decease, is all that you may ever be entitled to. On that head, therefore, I shall be uniformly silent, and you may assure yourself that no ungenerous approach shall ever pass my lips when we are married.
You are too hasty, sir. You forget that I have made no answer. Let me do it without further loss of time. Accept my thanks for the compliment you are paying me. I am very sensible of the honor of your proposals, but it is impossible for me to do otherwise than to decline them.
I am not now to learn that it is usual with young ladies to reject the addresses of the man whom they secretly mean to accept when he first applies for their favor, and that sometimes the refusal is repeated a second or even a third time. I am therefore by no means discouraged by what you have just said, and shall hope to lead you to the altar ere long.
Mary leaves the room.
Upon my word, sir, I do assure you that I am not one of those young ladies who are so daring as to risk their happiness on the chance of being asked a second time. I am perfectly serious in my refusal. You could not make me happy, and I am convinced that I am the last woman in the world who could make you so.
When I do honor myself the honor of speaking to you next on the subject, I shall hope to receive a more favorable answer than you have now given me. I am far from accusing you of cruelty at present. I know it to be the established custom of your sex to reject a man on the first application, and perhaps you have even now said as much to encourage my suit as would be consistent with the true delicacy of the female character.
Really, Mr. Collins, you puzzle me exceedingly. If what I have hitherto said can appear to you in the form of encouragement, I know not how to express my refusal in such a way as to convince you of it being one.
You must give me leave to flatter myself, my dear cousin, that your refusal of my addresses is merely words of course. My situation in life, my connections with the family of De Boer, and my relationship to your own are circumstances highly in my favor, and you should take it into further consideration that in spite of your manifold attractions, it is by no means certain that another offer of marriage may ever be made of you. I must therefore conclude that you are not serious in your rejection of me. I shall choose to attribute it to your wish of increasing my love by suspense, according to the usual practice of elegant females.
Jane, come down here, for there is so much fun. What do you think is happening? Mr. Collins has just made an offer to Lizzie, and she will not have him.
I do assure you, sir, that I have no pretensions whatsoever in that kind of elegance which consists in tormenting a respectable man. I would rather be paid compliment of being believed, sincere. I thank you again and again for the honor you have done me in your proposals, but to accept them is absolutely impossible. My feelings in every respect forbid it. Can I speak plainer? Do not consider me now as an elegant female intending to plague you, but as a rational creature speaking the truth from her heart.
Enter Mrs. Bennet.
What?
You are uniformly charming, and I am persuaded that when sanctioned by the express authority of both your excellent parents, my proposals will not fail of being acceptable.
Depend on it, Mr. Collins, that Lizzie shall be brought to reason.
Elizabeth exits.
I will speak to her about it directly. She is a very headstrong, foolish girl and does not know her own interests, but I will make her know it.
Kitty exits to get Mr. Bennet.
Pardon me for interrupting you, madam, but if she is really headstrong and foolish, I know not whether she would altogether be a very desirable wife to a man in my situation, who naturally looks for happiness in the marriage state. If therefore she actually persists in rejecting my suit, perhaps it were better not to force her into accepting me, because if liable to such defects of temper, she could not contribute much to my felicity.
Oh, sir, you quite misunderstand me. Lizzie is only headstrong in such matters as these. In everything else, she is as good-natured a girl as ever lived. I will go to